Hey everybody, it's Jeremy. Welcome back to Lucid's 2022 Tournament Game 4, where we are playing Nazca. This is turn 47. I just had a flashback to... We've been alive for a very long time, considering I came into this game thinking that we were very, very quickly going to be dead. So yeah, that's fun. We've got a bunch of little moving parts and pieces this turn to report on. Some inconsequential things, but still things that I think are fun to report on. So let's go ahead and jump into it, shall we? With some incoming trade, 2 death gems from Vanheim. This is the continuation of that trade. We had like a missed turn or two, but it's not a big deal. Like I'm not fucked up about it. And this is for obviously the big betrayal negotiations. But it's led to us having a very large death pool, death income, or death bank, that we're hoping to turn into a big well of misery for us. So fingers crossed. Aside from that, we have completed Construction 5. Very good for us. We've been relying on Ulm for the vast majority of the game to, provide all of our construction needs for us. We are trying to kind of like take control of our own destiny in regards to that situation. Be able to make our own boosters, be able to make our own research, items, be able to make our own thug gear, etc., etc. So, hopefully that's going to work out, fingers crossed. Should be another 2 turns before we get Construction 6. Once we get Construction 6, we've got a couple of different options, right? We're going to turn on production of lightless lanterns, continuously do those, try to get our research back up to parity, and, then we have a couple of different things that we're interested in diving into, and we'll see how that all goes. Next up, we have a little bit of site searching. We're trying to do continuous site searching throughout our territories, so over the course of the next 10 turns or so, we have everything site searched. Auspex found nothing. Arcane Probing found an Enchanted Gate, which is an Astral 1 site, so that's cool. Nothing with Dark Knowledge, nothing with Gnome Lore, and nothing with Augury, unfortunately. For site searching this turn, we got Astral +1 per turn, so that's better than nothing. Happy to have some more Astral. We're actually getting a little bit of a nice Astral income, which is unexpected, right? But maybe, I mean, Astrals, we are Astral. We have Astral, right? But we're not a big Astral nation per se, right? Like, we're not a big communion nation, necessarily. And it could be difficult for us to accomplish some of the things that other nations might accomplish in Astral very easily, because we don't have a lot of cheap Astral, like Astral 1s for communions, and we don't have a lot of high base Astrals, right? Like, we're not sitting rocking, like, Astral 3s or 4s out of the gate. We have Astral 2s, and we consistently have Astral 2s, and those Astral 2s can be turned into higher Astrals, but it's a weird kind of mix. Fortunately, even if we don't go that route, we have things like Huacas that we can just dump Astral points or Astral pearls into, so that's nice, right? Next up, a little bit of an odd thing to report for the turn, but remote attacks. We had a scout get mine hunted by Vanheim, so that's unfortunate, but it is interesting, I think, especially in this kind of like mid-ish game scenario. It's interesting to see who is using things like Mind Hunt, how frequently are they utilizing those options, and then especially as you get into the late game, right, which nations turn on remote attacks a lot, which ones are still stuck in the utilization of just, armies and things like that, right? It's an interesting thing to see kind of how the game develops in that route. So we'll report on those whenever we see them. And then we actually have a Dire Portent goes up. It is foretold in the prophecies of Vanheim that before their lord and master, 3 new apes, all that good stuff, finally vanquishes his enemies and ascends to the throne celestial, he shall grant all of his faithful long and prosperous lives. All ills shall be cured, and good health shall be enjoyed by everyone. That prophecy is now fulfilled. Gift of Health goes up for Vanheim, which is... That's a bit strange, but, I mean, Vanheim did snag Mother Oak early on. My assumption is that this Gift of Health is a relatively low overcast. So there is that. But with the amount of time that Vanheim has had Gift of Health up, it's entirely possible that Gift of Health was just a very low overcast. If overcast at all, right? Because there was nothing to compete with it. Why overcast it? And then Vanheim might have just been sitting on that income, right? If Van had 5 to 10 nature income prior to the Mother Oak, and then got the plus 10, then sitting at 15 to 20 income for, I think they've had Mother Oak up for like 10 turns now, 10-15 turns now, something like that. That could be a pretty decent sized Gift of Health if that is something that Van wanted to focus on. The thing is I don't think that's going to be the case, because I think there's a lot of really good thug equipment that a Vanheim wants to use. We've seen some Vine Shields, for example, right? Now, it's possible that Van was getting those from other individuals, Arcos Fale, Olm, etc. But I think it's also likely that they've done a bit of their own forging. So my assumption is that, especially, again, since not competing, right, there was an open slot, why not just put this up at relatively close to base, right? So, interesting. Very bad news, I think, for Jotunheim, who has been putting up a very good defense against Vanheim. A defense that I was hoping... I don't... There's no reason to be coy about it. A defense that I was really hoping Ulm would be backing Jotunheim up in, right? But that does not seem to be the case. So, I'm kind of still debating whether or not I want to try to jump in, because at this point it might be a scenario. Here's the problem. If Ulm doesn't come in, what might be the issue, or what might be an issue, is that at this point, if it's just Jotunheim and I against Vanheim, I think that Vanheim might still win, right? Like, Vanheim can easily fight us. And then also, if we turn our attention to Vanheim, we potentially leave our coast vulnerable to Pelagia. So we're kind of in between a rock and an elf at this current point in time, or the sea and an elf. So it's kind of a weird situation. I should probably be actively, in my nap, but I don't think that's what's gonna happen right now. We'll see how it goes. So anyways, Globals, Vanheim, Gift of Health. Boom. What else do we have going on? We've got a couple battles. These are really just raids. So Vanheim continuing to raid around as per agreed upon, us raiding back into specific territories. Can these 3 PD defeat the Hatzenruna? Would have been really funny if they did. But they did not. So, there's that. And then we ping Forgotten Woods yet again. So this is going to be a very big focus for us over the course of the next couple turns, is how do we get rid of, or how do we deal with this throne? And there's a big mix of stuff going on here, right? Like, the Deer Tribe are not especially threatening, but there are a lot of them, and setting up or prepping a unit to fight against the Watchers or the Monolith is not the same thing as fighting against these Deer Tribe, right? And while the Deer Tribe are very relatively weak and inconsequential, they are still there, right? And then kind of mixed in with them are these Enkidu soldiers, which are, again, not very good units necessarily, but they do hit potentially hard enough, right, to threaten something that is geared more towards the Watchers. And then, of course, the Watchers, very high lightning damage, armor negating damage, so you have to have high lightning resistance to be able to deal with them. And they have high protection and HP and resistances, right? Big, annoying shit. And then the Monolith over here with very annoying paths and a shit ton of gems, right? So, could do a bunch of Swarm Cast to poison someone, can do a bunch of Earth Elementals to fuck somebody up, could do things like Soul Slay or Enslave Mind, potentially, right? A lot of really interesting, and then super high protection, obviously. So, as I'm sitting here looking at this, I don't think that there is one thing that we can do that is going to, send this one person in with this set of equipment, and they will defeat this entire force. I don't think that that's going to be the case. We might try, I think maybe like one person with the right combination of fluffers could potentially do things, right? But I don't know that Nazca has the thugs, the chassis required for something like that. So, it's a little bit of a weird situation. Did my music die? No, it's just really quiet in my headset. Why it's so quiet in my headset? Anyways, so that's interesting. All we have going on right here is we're just suiciding these Apus because we want more Malquis. So, easy peasy lemon squeezy. Don't expect, would have been nice if we maybe like picked off or someone died due to Watcher fire or something like that, but we weren't expecting that. We were just getting some more Malquis. So, for battles this turn, versus Indies, we really just have a ping, right? And then versus Vanheim, we have 1 win and 1 loss. So, pretty simple stuff for the turn. We got a lot of events this turn, so let's run through those real quick. We have a population event in the Royal Green that continues onwards. We have a local wizard was found consorting with demons, and far worse, with rival nations. The foreign agent has been put under the axe and his lab plundered. We get a shit ton of gems. We get a gem of every single type, at least, which is really cool. And then in Pavonia, we have a local slave lord seeking absolution for sins, so we get a blood slave. And then in Old Man Mountains, there's a mild winter, so we get some extra trade. So cool. So we get gold and unrest in Old Man Mountains. So for events this turn, we have 4 good events. So events 0 negative, 4 positive. Royal Green population plus 260. Royal Green income plus 1. Old Man Mountains unrest minus 10. And then we have the stuff. We got gold plus 84, fire plus 5, air plus 4, water plus 4, earth plus 3, astral plus 4, death plus 3, nature plus 4, and blood plus 6. How many was that total? We got... We got 27 gems, and then we got the 6 blood slaves. So that's pretty good haul, honestly. 27 gems out of basically a single event is pretty insane. Pretty insane. That's really nice. Aside from that, just patrolling and then our mummification process. Let's take a look at some of the stuff that is going on here. For the turn. Not really a lot of activity, truth be told. We're still having, we're not quite done with our palisade in Olifa, right? So we are continuing to protect that scenario with the majority of our forces. I am maneuvering around to try to, probably what we're going to do is we're going to toss a bunch of Haten Runa at Forgotten Woods. So we are kind of consolidating in Miratrand with a bunch of Haten Runa, the stack from Amul, etc., etc. This is a bit of a mistake because we are going to fuck up our supplies here, and we're going to have some people starve, right? And then sending starving units against Forgotten Woods is... they're gonna die. We already know they're gonna die, though, I think is the thing. The question is just how many of the deer tribe, of the chaff, can these, like a big stack of maybe like 150 or so Hatenruna, how much can they kill before they are killed? Because they're definitely going to die. They can't win against the Watchers and the Monolith, but they might be able to fight the majority of the deer tribe if we're lucky. Though I think probably what will happen is we'll get the drop. A lot of Hatenruna are going to die on the drop, and then a lot of them are going to die in that first volley. So my assumption is maybe we get, like... how many deer tribe are here? I'm hoping we get, like, half of these deer tribe dead. Because if we can, right, like, we can do that another time or so and clear out most of the chaff here and then just worry about the Watchers and Monolith. But I don't know. This is just kind of like throwing spaghetti at the wall while we prep for other things, I think is the key thing. Because we are going to be prepping for other options. We don't have a lot to do right now, so we're just throwing things at the wall and seeing what sticks. Aside from that, we don't really have much else going on as far as movements, just continuing to move scouts around to try to get a better view of what's going on. So let's just talk about... actual mechanical details for the turn. So first off, we have some buildings, actually. And this is going to be interesting. We're actually putting up a palisade in Mark, and we're putting up a temple in Alifa. So I talked about this previously. Part of what this peacetime period is designed to do is give us the opportunity, one, to get back into things as far as research goes, but also, two, to get us back into things as far as infrastructure goes. And potentially, you know, I say back into things, but potentially further than our neighbors, because a lot of our neighbors have been at war consistently. Maybe not Pelagia, right? But Vanheim, definitely. And if we're able to get some fortifications up in our lands, that's going to help us. Part of the reason I keep being so scared, so timid of fighting against Vanheim is that the vast majority of our land is so easily raidable, right? And the easier you are to raid for an elf player, the worse time you're going to have. If we're able to get some fortifications up in some valuable provinces, then that makes things significantly more difficult for Vanheim to actually punish us through raiding, right? So we're going to put a fortification up in Mark. It is not an especially awesome province, you might think, right? But because of this gold mine, and because of the riches from beneath global, it's one of our best income locations. And it's right next to this throne, so should we fuck up and this throne not go well for us, Pelagia comes in and snags it, we'll then have a fortification right next to it to assail it from. Okay, so those are kind of like the general ideas, and then we just need more temples as we can. Temple in Alifa so that we can actually recruit specific things, though we're probably going to recruit the Hydromancers for the rest of the game there. So that might be a moot point. Speaking of recruitment, we have 3 Aklas, actually, coming up throughout our territories in all of our spare forts. So 3 Aklas, 1 Koya, 5 Sun Guard, and 2 Alkakaruna archers. Nothing really outside of the norm there. Mostly just, we want more Koyas, because they are good combat casters. I am considering the idea of twice-borning and suiciding them, but I don't know that we're going to do that yet. The interesting thing about Koyas is they actually do only they are size 3, but the size 3 comes from their wings, so their actual body is only a size 2, so they do only cost 10 death gems to twice-born, which is nice. But that's still 10 death gems that we want to be, and our income is not especially high at the moment, and I really kind of want to get towards like a 250 or so base and overcast of Well of Misery or something like that. but we'll see how that actually happens. It might become more valuable for us to start twice spawning our Koyas and killing them off. I think personally, the way that you play this nation is you do want to have some Koyas at the ready for if your Incas die, so that you can get Royal Malquis out of the combination. Good Royal Malquis out of the combination. You'll get a Royal Malquis regardless. It'll just be a shit one, and it'll still be expensive, right? So you want to get a good one, but after that, there's a certain point where you're like, I want more Koyas, because Koyas are good, right? They're Earth, Astral, Death. You can do a lot of shit with that. But they're expensive, right? 130 gold. I guess that's not super expensive, but in this situation where we don't have money, it is expensive. So twice spawning them is absolutely an option that we will probably look into the future, but we want to save our death gems for now. Nazcan recruits. We got 2 Malqui this turn. We actually got 50 Hatenruna this turn, which was a whole shit ton, right? And then we got 49 Long Dead Warriors and 2 Supayas. So the amount of chaff that we are starting to kind of like toss out is getting a bit high, right? I say, again, for where we've been, right? In a perfect world, if this was turn 47 and we were a strong 2-cap Nazca that had a good early game, etc., we'd already be racing past this, right? Like, we'd be at, 15 to 20 Supayas per turn, and we'd be at 100 plus Long Dead per turn, etc. But that is still the goal, and we are making progress towards getting there. And that's good. So, fingers crossed, we'll see how it goes. Special recruits, continuing to recruit wolves, so 3 wolves, and continuing to recruit dire wolves. So we have an additional dire wolf this time. See how that goes. Rituals for the turn. Most of these coming out of our capital. All of them being site searching, right? We've got 2 augury, 1 auspex, 1 gnome lore, 1 arcane probing, 1 dark knowledge, and 1 haruspex. The reason for the 2 augury rather than per se 2 auspex is because we are trying to aim for that higher fire income, so that we can, we could do 1 lightless lantern every turn, or we could do 2 lightless lanterns every turn, right? Like, if we can get to 6 fire income, which shouldn't be that hard, right? But we're really scraping by on fire income. But if we could get to 6, then that's 2 lightless lanterns per turn. Awesome, great, fantastic. Unfortunately, we have not had much luck so far with our remote site searching as far as augury goes, or really just fire, period. We haven't had much luck with site searching at all. I always tend to have like really low amounts of fire in most games. Like, it's very rare for me to jump into a game and it's like, oh, I'm just flooded with fire. So I don't know what's up with that. I think fire is actually one of those things where you get there's just less of it. Fire and air, I think that there's just less of it than water and earth, typically. But I don't know. It's strange. Anyways, I wanted to talk about this. We are moving our god this turn over to Olifa. And probably what we're going to be doing is, next turn we're probably going to be dropping a Blood Fecundity, and then the turn after that we're probably going to be dropping a Trade Winds, right? To get some scaling in Olifa, because it is the best province that we have aside from our capital, and then kind of just to jack up the income there so that we can actually try to make a good profit here for a while. So fingers crossed there. And then last but not least, we have more forging, just a single dwarven hammer this turn, because all of our other mages are doing stuff that we want them to be doing, and we're trying to be careful with our gems, so trying to not just make random shit without hammers. We want to get a decent size of hammers kind of built up, so that we have that kind of if you have 10 hammers, for example, right, and you're making 10 items per turn, you're saving 20 gems per turn, right? Obviously, that's kind of that like buying things on sale scenario. It's the idea of, well, if you just don't buy it at all, you're saving even more, right? Yeah. Casey over here yelling at me. But like we're gonna need items. We're gonna need quite a few items if we're gonna scale into this game. So we definitely want the dwarven hammers. We definitely want to make sure that we are utilizing those. That adds up after a while, right? Like 10 items, 10 turns. That's what 200 gems. That's a lot of gems saved over the course of that time period. Did I just quick math really badly? That seems like so much, but I think that's legitimately true, right? Because you're saving 2 gems per item. So if you're doing 2 gems and 10 hammers, you're getting 20 gems in a turn. You do that over the course of 10 turns, that's 200 gems. You know, that's a lot. It's a lot of savings at the end of the day. So that's pretty much it for the turn. Not a lot of really exciting stuff going on. We will take 2 more turns to finish out Construction 6. That will give us access to lightless lanterns and a lot of other stuff. Specifically, we'll get access to things like water bracelets, right? We'll get access to some other boosters. We'll get access to some pretty good thug gear, right? So Construction 6 is going to be nice for us, but the main focus is that lightless lantern scenario. So we'll basically just immediately start up. We're actually prepping. Part of the dwarven hammer thing is we want to immediately, as soon as we get Construction 6, we want as many people as we can afford to doing lightless lanterns with dwarven hammers every turn for the rest of until we feel happy with our research. And then we're doing the run-up conjuration. This is going to take a while. And unfortunately, it's also a situation of a bit of an annoying situation where we're like, well, everything's full. We kind of expected that, though. I talked about this a couple turns ago, that it's extremely unlikely for us to make it to Well of Misery and there still be open slots. We're not going to make it to Well of Misery until close to turn 60, I would say. And that's going to be kind of pushing it, truth be told. But you know, we have a lot of astral pearls. We could easily do like a targeted dispel and then try to open up a opportunity for us to, come in with Well of Misery. Or there could be a Well of Misery that goes up prior to that, and we could try to just overcast it, right? So we've got options as far as that goes. It's going to be... I don't want to say it's going to be boring turns for a while. Because I don't think they're necessarily boring. I find, but some people do, obviously, right? I find the periods of peace to be less action-packed, obviously, right? But what you're doing in them is extremely important. And what goals you're setting for yourself, what you're trying to accomplish, those things are very, very important. And there's a lot of, like, min-maxing that you can do in exactly what you're trying to accomplish. Right? Like, for instance, balancing how... I'm trying to make sure that we're hitting certain breakpoints on our research. So this turn, I actually really considered wanting to just start arcane probing with multiple people, because we've been getting so much astral that I'm like, oh, what if we just real quick site search all of our stuff with astral, and what if we're at like 20 astral pearls? That could be a huge thing. We could like say fuck it, and we're gonna go for a my god, an Arcane Nexus play, right? What do we need to accomplish that, right? Like our god has a lot of astral XYZ, blah 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 blah. What are we gonna do? But so like those are all options, and there's a myriad of other options that we could go for. But in order to do that, we have to risk certain things, right? Like we have to reduce the amount that we're researching, which means longer breakpoints to get to the things that we're potentially trying to accomplish. So I am taking the very kind of like slow and steady greedy approach. I say greedy approach but I think technically there are other greedier things that we could be doing. I think I'm playing safe at this point, which I think is what is needed to get us into the end game, to the late game. Because I think if we were reckless at this point, I think we were potentially a little reckless earlier. I think if we're reckless now, right, if we start taking swings at Pelagia, or we start pissing off Vanheim, we're just being reckless at that point, right? So I think it might be a little slow for a while, but I think the path that we are on is that get us back into the game and potentially be able to do something in the late game. The only aside is if Vanheim, Ulm, Pelagia, Arco, whoever's kind of like really the big powers, Vanheim, Ulm, and Pelagia for me at the moment. If they just end the game in the next 20 turns, I don't know that there's much that we can do about it. But that's the thing. I don't know that there's much that we could do about it anyways. If we were very, very particular about which research we're going for, and we go, okay, no. We got to be prepared to stop the game from ending in 5 turns. If we do that, what research do we have to have? I'm like, does it really matter? Even if we planned for that inevitability, right? I don't even know that there's really... I don't know that we would matter. I think we would be inconsequential for the most part. I think we're slowly pulling ourselves out of that kind of scenario. It's kind of like... I think I've talked about this for a while before. It's kind of like a MOBA, right? It's that scenario of... In a MOBA, there's a level cap. And there's an item slot cap, basically, right? So sure, if you get to the level cap and you fill out your 6 items, right, or whatever equivalent for whatever MOBA you're playing, right, if you get to that point, or the sooner you get to that point, the stronger you are than all your opponents, and you can force the game, right? But if you don't force the game, if you're unable to force the game, that each minute that passes, even if you're beating the shit out of your opponents, each minute that passes that you don't finish the game out, once you are capped, every minute past that point is catch up for your opponents, right? Because if they can stall long enough to get to max level, to get to max items, or even get close, right? Like, I don't think the game will go long enough for us, for example, to hit all 9s, right? And I don't think we would even need to hit all 9s. But right now, there are absolutely other players that are at 7s and 8s and things like that. If we can stall long enough to get to a couple 7s, an 8, or a 9 on our own, then that matters. That makes a big difference. As long as we don't fall, because, you know, that's just research. As long as we don't also fall too far behind the curve on income or gem income or, you know, power presence. There's a lot of different sliders in Dominions comparatively, in a strategy game comparatively. But yeah, at this point I'm just talking. Most of you are already aware of this, but these are the things that are kind of like going through my head as I'm doing these turns. I'm like, okay, what little min-maxy thing that can we do to kind of like, you know, we're not gonna be able to put up much of a fight in 5 turns, but what can help us put up a fight in 20 turns? So this is why we're doing things like putting up blood fecundities, putting up trade wins, making... We're on Dwarven Hammer 2 at turn 47, and that's not gonna matter in 5 turns, but it'll matter in 20 turns, right? Like, it'll absolutely matter in 20 turns. And if the game goes really long, right? If the game goes late to like 100 plus, oh god, heaven forbid. But if the game goes 100 plus, then the more that we put into this time of peace and like playing catch up and stretching our legs, right, the better we're gonna be, right? The better off we will be. So, anyways, that's gonna be the end of the turn. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, consider leaving a like, commenting, or subscribing. It really helps me out. If you'd like to see me live, head over to my Twitch at twitch.tv/thedistanthorizon.